Good morning, everyone. This is Simon Rice from Cintra. So we're going to be talking today about Oracle OpenWorld, obviously a huge event that happened this month in San Francisco, and Cintra's experiences, and really providing you with our thoughts on what the hot topics of the event were and where you as IT professionals should be investing your time in catching up with. So we're going to kick off the webinar now. So just a reminder for those people who are not familiar with Cintra as an organization, we're an Oracle Platinum partner. We've been around in New York City for 20 years and have some great news from OpenWorld that we'll be sharing with you in a minute. But in a nutshell, Cintra's differentiator or place in the Oracle world is as architects, solution architects primarily, building out complex Oracle architectures, whether those are on commodity hardware or converged infrastructure, and essentially coming up with a solution which meets your business requirements, providing the ultimate business capabilities at the lowest commercial investment. So that's we also provide a 24/7 expert database managed services as well. In terms of our customers, we're a global organization. We're based out of New York City with offices in London in the UK, in Chandigarh in northern India, and in Dallas in Texas, and expanding into other regions as we speak. So Oracle OpenWorld in 2016 was somewhat different to other OpenWorlds. This was my personal 5th year. Cintra have been going to these really since they started in San Francisco 20 years ago. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about cloud. There were banners up all around San Francisco announcing that Oracle was the fastest growing cloud provider. Obviously, a lot of that is based on Oracle's SaaS offerings, which have had some great adoption over the years. But we are seeing Oracle gain market share in terms of infrastructure as a service and platform as a service capabilities. And we'll talk about why in a second. So cloud was certainly a hot topic. Really the underlying message there was that hybrid cloud is a reality, that last year we were talking about cloud, and a lot of what we were talking about was theoretical, especially when it came to Oracle's cloud offerings. Now that's not the case, and there are people running fairly heavy production enterprise class workloads in the cloud. So the underlying message from Oracle, and interestingly, Mark Hurd, actually, the CEO of Oracle, sat on stage and gave some predictions around where he sees the cloud going over the next 10 years. And one of his key messages was that to stay competitive in the marketplace and essentially to survive as a business, you must have a cloud strategy, and essentially a long-term public cloud strategy. And there was a lot of press made about the fact, especially from some of the more skeptical press outlets like The Onion and The Register, that Mark Hurd asked the audience to vote on whether they agreed with his predictions, and almost every single one, the audience as a landslide, said they didn't agree with those predictions. You know, however, we've seen Oracle over the years make some pretty grand claims and stand behind them, and you know, predict the way the industry's gone. So I think time will tell. But certainly it remains true that the cloud is something that can't be ignored in this day and age, and is something we need to consider. One of the other real hot topics was around machine learning and artificial intelligence, and there were a lot of stories from customers, both large enterprises and small and medium businesses, who now have such a landslide of massive amounts of data, and that data can either be a giant asset if you're able to mine it and do something of value with it, or it can become a problem and a burden in terms of refreshing your non-production environments, in terms of portability to cloud architectures, and just the cost of maintaining that data set. So there was a lot of talk around what do we do with our huge amounts of data, and how do we provide the most business value from that. And primarily one of the underlying messages was cloud can give us the capabilities to do something with that data, whether it's big data clouds, whether it's just the elasticity and the scalability of clouds without the financial burdens of maintaining them. So we'll get into that in a second. And database 12.2 as well was a real hot topic, and how that dovetails into the whole cloud strategy, as well as just some other cool features for DBAs. Cintra actually had a very, very special OpenWorld this year, so if you'll pardon us blowing our own trumpet for a second, We first of all, before OpenWorld, we won a prestigious award. We were the 2016 North American Partner of the Year for Engineered Systems Growth, and that was primarily due to the work that we've done around the Oracle Database Appliance, the Exadata database platform, and the ZFS or ZFS storage appliance. We also won two awards within Oracle OpenWorld itself. We were the Excellence Award winner for Cloud Infrastructure and for SMB Solution. Again, the Cloud Infrastructure was for some work that we did around Exadata and Exalogic, really transforming businesses and providing much greater business capabilities and SLAs with those solutions. And the SMB solution was around how we manage the cost and the transformation of Oracle architectures for smaller companies who don't necessarily have the budget for those big ticket items. So a very special OpenWorld for Cintra as an organization as well. This was also the second year running that we presented at OpenWorld on the topic of hybrid cloud design. This handsome chap on stage is my colleague, my counterpart, Kyle Smith, who heads up our Texas region and is our subject matter expert on cloud. Now, we did a presentation, as I say, last year at OpenWorld around hybrid cloud and how to adopt a hybrid cloud architecture and build a roadmap to that, to really complement your on-premise architecture with your public cloud cost efficiencies. Now then, we were talking about a roadmap that goes through, as you can see on the left, standardization, consolidation, and modernizing, which I think most IT organizations have something of a handle on, how to manage our data with information lifecycle management policies, and how to provide more agility to spin up new environments for our business for things like provisioning of new environments for regulatory purposes, for test and development cycles, and so on, and eventually how to get to an architecture where we can adopt a cloud strategy with greater agility. All of that really came down to the fact that we were looking at lowering costs, faster time to market, focusing on business and not just keeping the lights on IT, and really the ability to innovate much more than we're able to now on an on-premise platform. Now, since then, over the last year, things have changed quite significantly, and you know, even more than we had anticipated, hybrid cloud models have become the norm. We're talking about people building their own private clouds internally, whether that's based on Oracle technology, as in Exadata, which provides a great consolidation density, or whether that's on things like VMware, which allow that degree of virtualization and agility. And that really drives, in turn, the hybrid cloud model where people are using public cloud then to complement it with off-site backups, with development operations in the cloud, and so on. The Oracle Cloud has become much more capable and particularly much more secure, which was a major barrier in the previous year. Microsoft effectively voted themselves out of the database as a service game for running Oracle by canceling and expiring their unlimited license agreement for their Azure customers. So now, even if you run database as a service from Microsoft, you have to bring your own licenses, which is not the case for Amazon and Oracle. A new player stormed onto the market, DigitalOcean, over the last year, and actually ate up as much of a market share on infrastructure as a service as Google had. We're also seeing, and really just due to the complexity of cloud offerings, we're seeing a new role of cloud service brokers who often recommend multiple clouds to customers. They also give customers a breakdown of the cost effectiveness of the different clouds and the suitability of those clouds. We also, Oracle purchased a tool called Ravello recently, which is could be a game changer for Oracle's cloud offering, which will allow the automation of picking up VMware virtual machines from your on-premise and migrating those to the cloud with the click of a few buttons, and also designing your VM architecture in the cloud very, very rapidly. Where that could be a huge win for Oracle is, as we all know, I think running Oracle database on VMware can be extremely costly due to the restrictions in Oracle's licensing rules, and the ability to migrate those VMs where the licensing of CPUs is required at the physical layer, being able to migrate those to an architecture in the cloud where we can actually license at the virtual allocated CPU core could provide some enormous cost savings, while still providing the same kind of elasticity and agility that we get out of the VM architecture. We presented some figures here as well at OpenWorld, which were kind of interesting. Again, we saw much higher adoption of private clouds and hybrid clouds. The second point here, that cloud providers are on average looking at, cloud users are on average looking at 6 cloud providers is very interesting. Obviously, that's a mix of IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS offerings, but still, most people are actually looking at more than just AWS at this point in time. The other thing that I found interesting here is that security was always the biggest barrier to the cloud. We had people who were saying, I can't move to the cloud because I require PCI compliance or HIPAA compliance. That's no longer necessarily such a barrier. More of a barrier these days is how do I actually get there? How do I design and architect my cloud solution and actually migrate to it? And one of the things that was very compelling was the message that security could be greater in the cloud than it is on-premise in this day and age, in that you have regular patching, you have greater uptime, and some of the hurdles that you have around infrastructure don't necessarily exist in the cloud. So the other thing that at OpenWorld really made people sit up and listen was the fact that we're agnostic as a cloud provider. So, as much as we resell the Oracle Cloud as an Oracle partner, we have a lot of customers who run on Amazon. And we gave this breakdown of where we saw the various cloud providers fitting, which was essentially Amazon as being a very, very good fit for web applications. It's almost in the name. OpenStack is a very good open source provider that interfaces with their own interface stack there. The Google platform is very good for BI and analytics and big data in the cloud. Azure, obviously, it's got the logo in the name there is very good at running Windows and SQL Server, whereas the Oracle Cloud, as we see it, is much more of an enterprise cloud. It has greater performance capabilities, greater high availability capabilities, and disaster recovery capabilities. So if you really want something to run your mission-critical business applications in the cloud, Oracle could be the place to do that. Lastly, again, what really brought home the message to our attendees at OpenWorld was that we do this for our customers now. This isn't something that we're talking about in theory. This is a real architecture that we have on screen right now for a customer that we're building to complement their on-premise Exadata environment with a cloud environment for disaster recovery and development and test. Similarly, we have our own very comprehensive pricing algorithms where we can plug in the various cloud components that we're recommending to a customer and the various discount levels that they can expect for those components. So we can really help a customer get an idea of how do I get to the Oracle Cloud or to any cloud, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Azure or Google, and how does that look in terms of pricing, and how do the capabilities for that price compare to the other cloud vendors? That's a conversation that we're very well equipped to have. So back away from Cintra for a second then on the Oracle side of things, Database 12c was a real hot topic, and the feature that everyone's been lauding about Database 12c at this point is known as sharding, which is something that I think DBAs who have been around the block a few times should be very familiar with, the ability to split up our data into multiple data sets. As well as that, though, there are some big improvements in pluggable databases. Pluggable databases, we can now have more of them. They support the advanced data optimization features and heat maps. There's a new version of Apex which has a whole host of new features around things like calendars that you couldn't have in Apex previously that really open up Apex as more of a development platform. A ton of SQL and PL/SQL improvements. If you're into Oracle development, I would definitely recommend taking a look at the release notes for Database 12.2, as there's a lot in there that's going to benefit you. Real-time materialized views, I think as much as the sexier features like sharding are getting a lot of press, I think things like the ability to refresh materialized views in real time are really going to change the way DBAs do business on Oracle 12.2. There are more online operations. Some of the partition operations that used to require downtime in 12.1 and previous versions, particularly when you're doing maintenance on global indexes, can now be performed online in 12.2. So again, could really change the way we strategize around partitioning. And in big data, there's a new feature called analytic views, which allow us to do online queries of more data dictionary style or data warehouse style tables, and to be able to do dimensional analysis on those tables through views rather than through star schemas as we previously would. So I've given you kind of a whistle-stop tour there on the hot topics as we've seen them, but as I say, the release notes are out there for 12.2, and we would definitely recommend having a dive into those and seeing what suits you and your job role in 12.2. So cloud was obviously also a hot topic at OpenWorld. One of the key points that Larry Ellison unveiled was the idea of this Generation 2 cloud, which is coming in a few months. Oracle are literally building out new data centers with much more capable infrastructure, and there was a presentation by Intel talking about new SSD technology, new in-memory technology, and new networking technology that provide us with 100 gigabit per second bandwidth between our servers. That really underpins all of Oracle's Gen 2 offerings here, and as you can see on the screen, Oracle have significantly more capable offerings than Amazon's largest shapes that are available in the Amazon Infrastructure as a Service cloud at the moment. Obviously, that doesn't mean that Amazon aren't going to be coming up with a new offering that's going to compete with Oracle. I'm sure they will as time goes on, but at the moment, Oracle's Gen 2 stacks up very nicely against Amazon AWS and is 20% cheaper to boot. So we can't complain about that. The other thing which was kind of cool was Oracle unveiled the first ever bare metal cloud. So any other cloud provider you go to, you rent some virtual machine space effectively on an infrastructure, whether that's Intel or Spark or what have you. Bare metal cloud will literally be what it says on the tin. You'll be renting physical servers and all of the resources of those physical servers. So if we're looking at a very high performance environment, an environment where we need dedicated hardware, then that's now possible in the cloud and only possible on Oracle's public cloud. So certainly that could be a game changer for some organizations. The other thing that was very interesting was Oracle's had out there for quite some time now the idea of a cloud machine, where for those customers who are interested in having Oracle or another cloud provider manage their cloud environment, but having that cloud environment located in their own data center for regulatory or security reasons, Oracle's always had a cloud machine out there that's enabled us to do that. Effectively, it's essentially a VM farm running a number of Intel servers with ZFS storage baked into it. The game changer there's a newer cloud machine that just simply runs better. It runs more performant than the previous. As well as that, they're now offering Exadata cloud machine and a big data cloud machine. So you can actually rent some Exadata space from Oracle, have Oracle manage the whole thing for you as if it was a cloud environment, but have that Exadata running in your local on-premise data center cabled in with your other infrastructure. The other thing which was interesting was Oracle have had Exadata cloud services for a while. So again, in the public cloud hosted at Oracle, you can rent some space on an Exadata. That's been a fairly expensive offering, primarily because the size of the Exadata you get there is quite significant. You're essentially looking at renting a quarter rack Exadata from Oracle if you do that. So the price point reflects a quarter rack of Exadata. Oracle unveiled, primarily for development and test type use cases, the ability to rent what's called Exadata Express, which is a much more entry-level Exadata offering. It still comes with all the benefits of having all of the Oracle database options, so the Enterprise Edition options like advanced compression, advanced security, and in-memory turned on. But the price point of this is much lower because you're renting only a certain number of CPU cores effectively on a virtualized Exadata environment. So we certainly wouldn't recommend that for your highest performance environments. Exadata on-premise or in the cloud is the way to go there. But if you want to trial Exadata and get a feel for the type of benefits that Exadata performance could give you, then Exadata Express could be a very affordable way to do that. And you're literally talking about prices as low as $175 a month to have a playground for developers on an Exadata. So in terms of on-premise engineered systems, we had some interesting things happening there. You may be looking at the slide that's on screen right now and thinking that's an Oracle database appliance, and it certainly looks like one. The big difference here is that we're running Spark servers instead of Intel servers. And you know, when we first heard about this at Cintra, I'll be honest that we heard about a Spark ODA, and we said, you know, what's the big deal? Is this the same hardware with Spark instead of Intel chips in it? at OpenWorld, it really opened our eyes to the capabilities of this machine. So the premise is really the same. It's the simplicity. It's an appliance which is rolled out in a very wizard-driven manner. Security is probably the hottest topic and the reason why we're going to see this appliance adopted, and we'll talk about why in a second. Efficiencies, again, instead of virtualizing with reduced CPU cores as we did on an ODA or with OVM virtualization, on the mini cluster, we're now virtualizing using Solaris zones to do essentially the same thing. And it is cloud ready as well. It's fully certified and compatible with the Oracle Cloud. So what you get in it is some S7-2 compute nodes. So we have 2-socket Spark servers. The benefits that we see there are that Spark, in case you don't know, Spark has some significant benefits in terms of the encryption and decryption, the uncompressing and compressing that can all be done on chip. There are a lot of other features that are now baked into the Spark chips to really provide massive performance savings by baking in the software into the silicon chip. All-flash database storage, so we're now talking about a lower usable storage footprint than the traditional ODAs, but much more performant storage as we're running everything in both PCI flash and SSD storage. And we also do have some high-capacity SATA drives in there for storing things like VMs, for backups, for ETL files, and so on. Where we see this as being pretty compelling, one of the coolest features that I couldn't believe when I saw it at OpenWorld was they rolled out a mini cluster in front of us during the session. They then picked from around 250 different security protocols and picked, for example, HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley, and a whole host of more obscure ones that are very industry-specific. Literally, with a click of a button during the install wizard, locked that mini cluster down to that compliance requirement, and also then provided an ongoing report on the ongoing compliance of the mini cluster against that regulatory requirement. So we would, if a user was unlocked that shouldn't have been, if a weak password was introduced that needed to be hardened, all of that would be flagged up by the mini cluster software automatically. So for me, that's probably the biggest selling point of this environment, that servers that took weeks or months to harden and fairly costly services engagements to do so can be locked down in a matter of minutes. So certainly we see the same benefits of an ODA in terms of development and operations there. Real-time analytics as well. The fact that we have analytics built into the S7 chips within the mini cluster is very powerful. And just as we did with the ODA, we see these being very attractive either as running lower footprint database workloads or as spidering out if we have something like an Exadata or a supercluster as our master node somewhere, having remote branches running these mini clusters could be a very cost-effective way to spread our database estate. The other thing, which was almost in the same breath, Oracle unveiled a new Exadata model, the SL62, which rather than the current X6 Intel servers, we're going to be running T7 Spark servers in that architecture. What's really interesting here is that we can actually run Exadata with Spark chips, but run Linux on those Exadata nodes, or we can choose to run Solaris Spark on those Exadata nodes, but run it in an Endian NIS which is compatible with Linux. So we no longer have the migration headaches of migrating between Spark, which is little Endian, and Linux, which is big Endian. So this, this could be very interesting again for people who want a very secure workload, who are doing a lot of encryption and decryption, for people who want to make use of the benefits of the data analytics accelerator, the DAX that's running on the Spark chips as well. So we're expecting that to be released in around 3 months at the same cost as the Intel Exadata. So, it'll be very interesting to see the performance capabilities and how they stack up. The other thing that was interesting, we had some new ZFS models, and it's kind of around the right time to be refreshing the ZFS models provided by Exadata. One of the things that was really interesting was when we were talking about ZFS as a storage platform and particularly as a NAS platform a few years ago, Oracle was brand new to the storage game. Now when you look at the adoption of ZFS, particularly when it's attached to engineered systems as a backup solution, as an expansion to Exadata, or as a cloning and snapshotting solution. The adoption rate is huge, and we're really seeing Oracle gaining some momentum in the storage industry there. The other thing which is very cool, if you're a ZFS user or if you've evaluated it in the past, Oracle have really revolutionized the analytics and the monitoring of ZFS. There are now more capable Enterprise Manager 12 and 13 plugins. The dtrace analytics that are built in have just gone from strength to strength as the releases have gone on. And you can even get usage, if you're running an Oracle database workload on ZFS, you can even get usage down to the pluggable database level, and the storage is intelligent enough to know what's happening within those databases. As just on the flip side of that coin, the Oracle database technology has evolved to the point where it would know it's running against a ZFS storage appliance and be able to inform the ZFS about when to use SSDs, when it's better to use spinning drives for different workloads, and those type of considerations. So it really reinforces the benefits of running Oracle database on Oracle hardware. The new ZFS models are primarily a CPU upgrade over the old model. We're running the new Haswell chips in the new ZFS controllers, many more CPU cores. And one of the messages from Oracle was that they're looking to integrate cloud storage into the ZFS portfolio. So in future, there will be a ZFS release which will allow you to mount up Oracle Cloud Storage or Cloud Archive Storage as a new pool within your ZFS controller, so you'll be able to monitor it and manage it just as if it was a physical shelf of drives on your on-premise ZFS. So that's pretty important. The other thing which is important from an architectural point of view is Oracle have taken the read SSDs out of the ZFS controllers and moved them into the storage trays, so we can now have hundreds of terabytes of read SSD rather than the previous limitations, which were a few terabytes per controller. So that should really give the new ZFS models a performance boost. And what we're seeing on the benchmarks already is around a 35% benchmark over the previous generation. The other thing before I move on is that the previous model, ZF32, was not certified to run encryption at the storage level, and primarily that was due to the overhead that encryption has on CPU cores. Now that the ZF52, the new model, has more CPU cores, Oracle have certified it as being capable of running encryption. So there's no additional cost for that encryption on the storage level. The story around the larger model, the ZS54 replacing the ZS44, is very similar. We've got more CPU cores, we've got read SSDs moved down to the drive trays, providing 230, even up to 300 terabytes of read SSDs, and the performance improvement as we're seeing it now in the benchmarks is around that same mark, around a 30% uplift over the previous model. The other thing worth mentioning is that the Oracle Cloud runs on ZFS storage. So if you're skeptical about its redundancy, its performance, then really the Oracle Cloud runs on 400 petabytes of ZFS storage, which is quite something. So, in terms of Oracle eating their own dog food, I think that's quite an important point to make. The other thing that we noticed at OpenWorld this year was a demo by Actifio that I wanted to touch on. So Actifio are a company that we've encountered a lot over the past year. They're really one of the leaders in what we call data as a service, so copy data virtualization. They have this strategy of what they call two-speed IT. So previously, obviously, there's been a competition really between developers and business owners who want to be accelerating the innovation that they get from their data and having faster refresh cycles and more copies of their production data. Whereas on the flip side, we've had our regulatory teams and our risk teams who are looking to secure our data more, to provide greater data protection, and those two don't always marry up. So the way, and when we look at traditional IT architectures, we have lots of copies of our production data. Are those copies of production secure? Is that data masked? We're paying for each one of those copies. We're taking significant cycles to spin up those copies. And are they actually effective in terms of what they're giving our developers and our testers? As well as, probably most importantly, can we actually meet our SLAs in terms of restoring that data if we had a production emergency? The way Actifio changes that equation, and has done for the last few years, is to virtualize that data. So Actifio provides either a hardware or a software appliance that sits in front of your block device SAN, which has LUNs presented from your SAN to it, and then allows you to take snapshots and cloning of that data in a very wizard-driven, easy-to-use manner to provide your developers with, for example, a copy of production as it was at 4 p.m. on Friday. What's new in this space, and Actifio is the only game in town at this point, is integration with the Oracle Cloud. So we literally saw a demo where Actifio had a 3 terabyte database that they were running on-premise at Oracle OpenWorld on the exhibition floor. Within around 15 minutes, they had cloned that data over into the Oracle Cloud and were running that on Oracle's infrastructure as a service. So if we are again looking at a hybrid architecture where we're running our production databases on-premise, our development databases in the cloud, Actifio could be a very, very cost-effective and agile way of spinning up those cloud development clones without the need for lots of downtime, lots of man-hours in order to do that. So just to wrap up here, I feel like I've spoken at 100 miles an hour and flown through the key points, but that's the nature of a half-hour webinar. But where we saw the real high points of OpenWorld, and where we think our customers and certainly we at Cintra should be focusing in 2017, enterprise hybrid cloud strategy I think is key, both complementing our private on-premise strategy with a public cloud strategy. And really, you know, I think every organization needs to have something in place for the next 3 years to be able to be building that out, and at least making their on-premise architecture modern and portable and pluggable into that public cloud architecture. Engineered systems we've just seen go from strength to strength. The compelling reasons to move to engineered systems as they were 5 years ago are now only more compelling, and those systems are becoming more affordable, and the benefits are much, much clearer when comparing them against commodity hardware. We also have a greater set of tools in our toolbox around engineered systems with the introduction of the mini cluster, with the introduction of the ODA small and medium models, and some new announcements that are coming very soon over the next week, which we're going to be sharing with you. Simplicity and lowest operational risk, that's really been one of the underlying messages, is let's not worry so much about keeping the lights on in IT and having large IT organizations who are really just there to maintain our infrastructure. If we move to a cloud-based model and more of an as-a-service model, we can free those teams up to be providing more business value. The other point there is agility, elasticity, and scalability. That if we're looking at that extreme business growth, if we're looking at milestones which show that our customers are increasing their adoption rates significantly, cloud is really becoming one of the only ways that we can become elastic enough to meet those demands in a very rapid fashion, to be able to get to market much, much faster and meet our regulatory requirements, but also to be scalable and to handle the volume of data that inherently brings with it, and to do something with that data and, again, provide some business value from it. So what I'd like to do to wrap up is ask for any questions. If you have any questions, please drop them into the chat window at the top of the WebEx bar on the top of your screen. If you don't have any questions, but you're intrigued by what we've been talking about in terms of the new developments from Oracle, feel free to drop us an email. That's my email, Simon Rice, srice@cintra.com, and our CTO, Abdul Sheikh, who's one of our lead architects as well, ab@cintra.com. If you want to fire us an email with any questions, with any thoughts, anything you're interested in learning more about, please do. We're more than happy to talk to you. So I'm going to leave the WebEx running for just a few minutes here in case you have any questions. And if not, thank you very much indeed for joining, and we'll look forward to talking to you on our next technology webinar.